Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I'm going to do the nonfiction on Booktube tag that was created by Book Olive, who's also the fabulous host of Nonfiction November, and it's been so much fun to see everyone talking about nonfiction both on YouTube as well as on Instagram. Myself and Book Olive are hosting a month-long photo challenge on Instagram for Nonfiction November, and it's been so amazing to see everyone's posts there and to see how the enthusiasm for Nonfiction November can be sparked in a different format, or in a different platform, I should say. First question is, how much nonfiction do you read? I think generally over the year, this year as well as the previous year, my nonfiction is about 35 to 40% of the books that I read. So I'm not quite at the halfway point, which is really where I would love to be. I think currently I'm at about 37% of the year's reading has been nonfiction. The second question is, what kind of nonfiction videos do you make or do you want to make on Booktube? I do book hauls specifically for nonfiction. I never really show off the fiction books that I read because I found that the nonfiction book hauls get a lot of views, and I think probably it is because I have very varied interests, and so I find a lot of books that are not very discussed on Booktube, and therefore I think the nonfiction book hauls are seen as useful in finding out about new books within the nonfiction realm, so I really enjoy making those. I have been doing, of course, the nonfiction reading challenge videos, and the nonfiction reading challenge is something that I started this year in challenging myself to read sort of specific areas of nonfiction, so I will link the announcement video below. But that is something that I've been doing videos related to the challenges of that entire year-long challenge. And then I do sort of a mix of things as well. This month, of course, I've done several recommendations videos related to nonfiction. And in terms of what I want to do, I think I would love to do more book reviews for nonfiction books, sort of specific ones or thematic ones. I have a few ideas for nonfiction videos that I want to make next year. But that is sort of where I'm at with the video making. But if you have any specific recommendations for videos that you would want me to make, feel free to share them. I'm always open for suggestions. So, but yeah. That is my long-winded answer for this question. The third question is, what's your favorite subgenre of nonfiction? This is for sure nature nonfiction, and within nature it is the animal nonfiction that I am particularly drawn to. There's also the subgenre of sort of music-related nonfiction that I've been getting into and that I've really loved exploring in the writing form. Music has been a lifelong passion for me, and I never really thought that writing about it would work for me because it's so based on the sound element. So those are the sort of the two subgenres that I am particularly fond of at the moment. The fourth question is, do you have a favorite nonfiction book? Of course I have, and I have several ones. I think the easiest way for me to answer this question is to just link you to a video I did recently talking about my favorite nature nonfiction. The fifth question is, what do you think keeps people from wanting to read more nonfiction? I think a lot of people assume that they have to read nonfiction in a certain way, or read a specific areas or topics, that there's sort of a right way to read nonfiction. I think a lot of people have this idea. There is nonfiction books about pretty much every topic you can think of, as several have mentioned in this tag video. There are many ways and formats you can explore nonfiction, and there are many ways to go about it with a very serious intention or just wanting to be entertained. There's everything within the field of nonfiction. There's every level of seriousness, every level of difficulty and ease to the writing and to the reading of books. There's all kinds of topics, so there isn't just one way to read nonfiction, and I think that is something that puts people off when they think of nonfiction being like only about politics, only about serious topics, only dry academic writing, only big books. Like, these are not the only forms of nonfiction out there. Whatever your tastes are when it comes to reading, there's definitely some nonfiction that will fit into that. The sixth question is, why do you like nonfiction? This is a very big question, and I could probably do an entire video about this. But the easiest way to answer this is that I love to learn, and I also find that I am endlessly curious about the world, which is why this channel is called Curious Reader. I am constantly finding new areas or new topics, subgenres that I want to explore further. These things that I am finding can either be through reading fiction books, for example, just hearing about something that I am intrigued by and want to explore further in nonfiction. It can be through nonfiction books themselves. It can be by watching movies about a specific time period, for example, or where a big event is mentioned and I want to know more about it. So I think generally the reason I love nonfiction is because I am a curious person, and nonfiction allows me to explore that endlessly. But also I wanted to emphasize that nonfiction can be entertaining, so you don't have to only be drawn to nonfiction by wanting to learn. You can easily approach the form of writing of nonfiction with just wanting to be entertained, because there's plenty of books of the nonfiction kind that will give you that exact escapism or sort of thrilling experience that you will get from fiction books. The seventh question is, what's a nonfiction book you read because of BookTube? There's several of these, of course. There is The Soul of an Octopus by Simon Montgomery, which I picked up on Olive's recommendation. There is Waterfalls of Stars by Rosanna Alexander that I picked up on Charlotte from Tired Mama Tries to Read's recommendation. There is The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee that I picked up just based on the overall enthusiasm for this author and this particular book. I saw several reviews. The eighth question is, what's the best nonfiction book you've read lately? And that is probably Vanishing Fleece by Clara Parks. This is a book talking about the production of wool and looking at everything in the process, from the shearing of wool from the animal to the processing and cleaning and spinning and all of the steps that make up the journey from the animal to the material. Been recently getting into knitting with wool, so this was such an enlightening book, especially as a knitter. It was really enlightening to see the way that the wool comes into my hands, and some of the technical terms that I had seen before but didn't understand. So I think this is a book that I would specifically recommend for anyone knitting, especially if you're knitting with wool yarns. It is not necessarily as easy to recommend it with a general recommendation. If you're interested in American industry and the way that has changed over the years, then maybe this will be of interest to you. But I think if you have an interest in knitting especially, you will love this. The ninth question is, what are some of your nonfiction reading goals? So one of the goals, as I pretty much touched on in the beginning of this video, is that I would really love to have more of a 50-50 split with my nonfiction. It isn't really an official goal, it's just something that I have in the back of my mind, that I would love to have more of an even divide between fiction and nonfiction. Another goal is my nonfiction reading challenge. I am now closing in on the year, but I still have quite a few challenges to fulfill to be able to complete it. And the nonfiction reading challenge is also coming back next year, and I have some plans for that as well. Also, this year I decided to read through the entire Wainwright long list, which I've talked about in a separate video, and I still have not finished reading the long list. That is another nonfiction related goal, that I would like to finish reading through the long list and make reviews for each of the books that I've read. I'm obviously very behind, so hopefully by the time that the next long list comes out, I will have finished doing this goal. The 10th question is, what's your advice for incorporating more nonfiction into your reading diet? I've made a full video talking about tips in getting into nonfiction or how to read more nonfiction. The most important tip that I had in that video is probably just to pick up a book on a nonfiction topic that you are personally invested in. It doesn't really matter what this interest is, but it is the best way, in my opinion, to spark an interest and enjoyment for nonfiction. And then once you have your foot in, you can really read anything. But I don't think the best way to get into nonfiction is to read something you think of as important or as only educational, because then you're still sort of strengthening the idea that nonfiction is heavy reading or that it is hard to read. Obviously it can be, but with fiction, there is several different kinds of nonfiction, some with more long-term value and some with more escapism qualities. I would say pick something that you are personally interested in, and it doesn't have to be revolutionary. Just something that speaks to you. And the bonus question is, give some recommendations of nonfiction booktube channels that you love. First of all, of course, a Book Olive. I mean, it's probably pretty obvious, but she is the fantastic creator of Nonfiction November, which has been one of the best things about Booktube for me. There is Andrea from Infinite Text that is just amazing. She is a librarian, and you can really tell through her videos. She's very informative, and I just love everything that she does, especially her Death Shelf videos. I love Sophie from Portland Pages reviews of nonfiction books. I also really want to mention Maria from Read, Create, Repeat. She does several videos about nonfiction that I love to watch. So yeah, I would definitely recommend all of these channels strongly for nonfiction watching for nonfiction related videos to watch on Booktube. Those were all of the questions for this tag. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and very rambly answers. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.